And that brings us on to the Wolstenholme Memorial Lecture. And we are very pleased to welcome Suzie Fletcher, who is a master saddle maker and is very well known to a lot of people for her appearances on television. And she has her own workshop in Oxford where she specialises in the design and production of leather, especially for female riders. And she has been working in the industry for many, many years.
So kind. Thanks for the baby.
And I'm going to pass her the floor now to discuss leather, passion, opportunity as our Wolstenholme Memorial Lecture. And the Wolstenholme Memorial Lecture is about leather heritage and history. And it gives us great pleasure to welcome Suzie to the conference.
Can I stand?
You can walk around. You can
Well, good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see everybody, and it is really lovely to see people in the flesh instead of just in a screen. It's an absolute honour to be here, and I thank Deborah for putting my name forward. Actually, I didn't thank her. I said, absolutely no way am I doing it. But if you know anything about Deborah, is in a conversation, she can take a no to a maybe to an absolutely let's do this, and say thank you, Deborah, very much. Here's my lovely horse, Bob. I absolutely love this photo, and it's for a reason that I will absolutely share with you at the end of my little chat as to why looking at this photo just fills me with so much courage, which I need this morning because I'm speaking with all of you learned people. So how do I end up here in front of you? Well, I was an unplanned child, turning up to a watchmaker who was having to feed many, many mouths, and his wife, who was a homemaker, although that wasn't by choice. And so with very humble beginnings, I learned very quickly that if you needed something in life, you had to be prepared to work for it and follow your passion. Now, my father, being watchmaker, I inherited patience and an incredible work ethic. And from my mother, the artist that she was, a visionary, I inherited design and how to apply that to my passion. Sadly for my mother, she had taken this wonderful skill that she had where a neighbour would come to her and say, I need a dress for tonight, this is my vision, can you make it? And she would go, absolutely. Without a pattern, she would make that dress ready for the neighbour that evening. What really blows my mind about my mother was she was only 14 and she was able to do this. With that skill, she was offered placement as a scholarship to go to London, and that was her dream, to become a fashion designer. Unfortunately for her, but fortunately for me, her father prevented her from doing that. So I have inherited that love of design and flair and try whatever, research and development, that's what I love to do. So very early on, it became apparent that I had fallen in love for the first time, and it was with our four-legged friends, the horse. I inherited that from my paternal grandmother, and it was the last thing my parents needed was their youngest child desperately wanting a pony. Every Christmas, it was the same. My birthday is very close to Christmas, so I'm sure I can have a pony because I could buy the presents. And in fairness to my parents, it wasn't really feasible because of the financial obligations. So very early on, I was able to go to riding school thanks to my grandparents, and I lived for Saturday mornings. And I would go to riding school, and it was farewell in every step of the way. And we were a motley crew. I was a tall one, buck teeth and bad hairdo. Nothing much changed there. And I loved riding. I fell in love, but I also found there was this thing called a tack room. And if you've ever walked into a tack room where you've got saddles and bridles and halters and everything that's leather, and that smell, it was intoxicating. And I found myself drawn to wanting to clean tack, so I became very popular at the riding schools. And as the time went on, I became a good enough rider that I was fortunate to take on exercising a local pony for somebody that was at college. It's great. I had my own pony, and I had to cycle 4 miles up and down the hill with the saddle and bridle on the handlebars. Some of you may know this story, but it didn't matter how hard it was. I had to go and sit and ride my pony. It wasn't mine, it was somebody else's. Through a series of events, the pony got moved closer to my home, and my dad said, okay, well, if we're responsible for the pony, you have to get a job. I was 13 at that time, and I thought, gosh, what can a 13-year-old do? I've got school and everything, you know, come on. But he started to instill those hard lessons in me from a very early age. So I was able to have the pony quite close to home, and then eventually I was at a horse show, and the pony actually got sold without me knowing, and that was the first time my heart was broken. I was inconsolable, and thanks to Grandpa, he made a better offer, and so the pony actually became mine. What my dad didn't realise at that time was I had found my lifelong love, and from that was going to be a career. Going back a little bit, I do remember going to a place in Whitley called the Glove Factory with my parents, and whilst they were getting their order done for bespoke gloves. Hello. I'm a bit busy. While they were having their order taken care of, I looked on the floor and there was an offcut of leather, and I'm thinking, I wonder if anyone will notice if I just pick this up and keep it in my hands. I should ask, but they might say no, and I've got a plan for this piece of leather. So nobody asked, and I ended up taking this piece of leather home with me. So yes, I am a thief. I'm sorry. I'm going to bare my soul. Here we go. But what I wanted this piece of leather for was, I was an avid fan of Top of the Pops. I love music, and there was a group there called Pan's People. I'll do full routine tonight. And Babs, the hottest one. She had this suede waistcoat with fringe, and as she moved, it just moved with her, and I was just fixated by this. So my Cindy doll got a rocking waistcoat with a fringe, and there was a little bit of leather left over, and I thought, Cindy horse needs a saddle. So I made a saddle with what was remaining of that leather, and I was beginning to feel that this is right. This feels so good in me. I can actually create things that will work, and people will see and wear and use. So with Pony Time, ended up with my grandfather buying me a pony, but now the pressure was really on for me to get a proper job because there's serious money involved here, and I also needed a saddle. So I was able to save up enough money and bought a saddle second hand. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was at a horse show, lying inside of the fence, something broke, and I instinctively knew this was not good news, so off I hopped. As it is, the saddle tree, the foundation broke, and bad news. So I said to Dad, what do we do? And he said, I'm sure it could be repaired. So off we trot, pardon the pun, to the local saddler, Ken Langford. And Ken was about 20 feet tall, lots of hair, big sideburns. It was the 70s, and with a big booming voice, and I was terrified of him. And Dad said, oh, pony saddle. He went, yeah, broke. And he said, unfortunately, it's not very well made, so we can't repair it. And I was heartbroken again, because now I've got to find another saddle. And Ken recognised this. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, he said, why don't you take it home, take it apart, have a look, and just learn how a saddle's made. That's it. So I go into the garage and don't know where to start. So you just got to start. You just got to start somewhere. And I ended up taking the saddle apart and got more and more and more fascinated with it. And also realised that actually somebody made this, so why can't I? And it was that moment that I realised that if there was any possibility, my job another day would be that of a saddle maker. So I go to Dad and I said, look, you know, this is what I did, and I tried to put it back together, but Frankenstein, now it doesn't go back together. But I would really like to get a job as a saddle maker. So back we go to Ken, and Ken just burst out laughing, and I said, I'd like to be a saddle maker. And I was like, oh gosh, you know, undermine my confidence again by dating big giant of a man, scary thing. And he was laughing, not because of what I'd done, he was laughing because I had taken what he had said so literally and then made it my own, to where I realised this was a turning point in my life, and I was 14 at this time. And I said, so Miss Langford, I would like to be a master saddler. And he said, well, women aren't really master saddlers. It was the 70s, you have to understand. It was still a problem. You can be a bridle maker, but not saddle maker. You don't have muscles. But he didn't think like that, and he said, no, actually, there's no reason why you can't. If you're prepared to have a go. So I started with him weekends and Tuesdays and Thursdays during the summer holidays from school, and I had definitely found my bliss. Apart from cleaning tack, which I love to do, I would sit and watch him and David, his apprentice, doing the work, and then eventually I was allowed to start using a knife and disassembling things ready for him to repair. And of course I cut myself, I stabbed myself, I hit my fingers with hammers, and every time I did he'd say, you won't do that again. But I did. And then I said, okay, well, this is it. This is definitely what I want to do. How do I do this? Because I'm not very good at school and I'm not going to get any qualifications, because back in those days, they didn't recognise dyslexia. And I struggled terribly with maths and English and all of that sciencey stuff that you guys do. But I was very good at art, very good at sport, and apparently I was very friendly, so silver linings. So he said, well, I can't take you on because I already have an apprentice, but let's see if we can get you enrolled at a place in London for when you leave school called cordwainers. And so 15, I went up for my interview and just explained that, yes, I know I'm a bit young and I'm still at school and maybe I'll get a qualification, I don't really know, but this is really what I want to do. And they said, okay, well, you can come to the college, but you have to do your first year has to be a pre-entry course, a pre-access course, and you will do footwear and leather goods first, and then we can put you into saddlery. I was thinking, don't want to do that. Little did I know how much I would value that education as time went on. So I go to London, East End of London, Hackney, where there were still buildings bombed out that hadn't been rebuilt. There was a certain underground of lively characters, shall we say, that was still operational on the manor. And I had grown up on the edge of the Cotswolds in a lovely little market town, and this was like, wow, 16 years old, I'm an adult, and I'm in the East End of London. What could go wrong? Not a lot. I'm not going to talk about that. But as far as my education, the leather education side of it, it went very well. I excelled at footwear. I excelled at leather goods. It made sense. I, with the footwear, decided to make riding boots instead of lovely little sandals that the other girls were making. And when it came to leather goods, I was making country cartridge bags instead of nice little clutch purses. There was definitely the country girl coming out of me in every step of the way. And then I moved into the saddlery side of things, and bliss, at last, this is what I want to do. And the liberty that we had to make a bridle, make a saddle, make a halter, leather girths, all of those things was so invaluable because you're in a classroom setting. It was difficult, and it was made doubly difficult because we were given London tan to use. And so this very blonde leather had to be professionally stained on the edges, otherwise you'd lose marks. Everything was sewn with white linen thread, so it stood out like a sore thumb when you had a bad stitch. It was really high expectations from the examiners with your end of year work, but it was a really important part of my education, because when you start with very solid challenges, it will get easier. I don't believe in just easing yourself into it. Let's just get straight in there. I went on to do my formal apprenticeship with Ken, and also Bill Turner, who was the then Royal Warrant holder for the Royal Mews. And just 4 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of going back to the Mews, and they've got display cabinets or Ward State harness, which is really impressive. If you've ever been there, I highly recommend it. If you're a geek like me with leather horses. And my friend who was showing me around, she still works there, and I said to her, so what set of harness did we repair back in the 80s? And she said, it was that set. And I go over and have a look at these wonderfully displayed sets of harness, and I could see the pieces that I had actually repaired. And that was my moment of, that's my history, that's my legacy. I felt so proud. No one else would ever know that, but I felt proud. And that was how much that time that I spent with Bill just came flooding back to me, and how fortunate I was to meet somebody like Bill, who gave so much of himself and his education that I still have in me today and I'm still using. So then I get my master's in Master's Saddler, not Masters. And I think, well, what now? What should I do now? And I had travelled a little bit, because the beauty about the skills I hold is that I can go anywhere in the world, and somewhere I will find a job, somewhere somebody needs somebody that has the skills to work with leather. And so nothing's holding me back at this stage of the game. And I get an invitation to go to America, which, interestingly enough, wasn't my first choice of places to really want to go and set up, because it was a little too westernized and I prefer to go more quiet, out of the way places. So anyway, I go. And I remember walking into the tack shop in Boulder, Colorado. If any of you have been to Boulder, Colorado, it's a cool place. It's a fun place. And I was 30-something at this stage of the game. A little bit older and wiser. And the commission was I was going to be there for 2 years, and in that time I would set up a workshop. I would give basic training to somebody locally, and they would take their training on. And then after 2 years, I was off to South Africa, because somewhere in my heart I just felt like I needed to be there. As it is, 3 weeks after I arrived in Boulder, Colorado, I was walking down the street, and I met this chap. And a little while later, ended up married. But that's another story. I'll tell you another day. So instead of me staying there for 2 years, I stayed there for 22. Yeah, well, I was on no time frame in my life. It's funny how opportunities happen rather than you follow a plan. And one of the things about life I've learned is follow what is presented to you in the way of opportunities, rather than sticking to, by this time I'll be doing that. I'd like to think I've taken more of a windy road that has introduced me to many wonderful people, and we've shared our experiences within the industry, but also in life. So my husband and I ended up with me setting up my own business, because the wonderful lady who owns the tack shop who brought me over to Boulder, Colorado, unfortunately went into liquidation. I'd like to say it was nothing to do with me, but absolutely 100% it was me. And it was because she wasn't in the position to take me on when she did, and we laugh about this now. But it was a very difficult time because then I realised that to be responsible for somebody's business that didn't make it, not because you didn't do the work properly, but because they weren't ready to make that investment, but they didn't want to miss the opportunity. I felt very guilty, and I had to deal with that. We're still great friends, thankfully. But it gave me an opportunity to set up on my own, and I realised that I had a captive audience, because at that time I was one of 5 English people in America who had the title of Master Saddler. And America is a very, very big place. And once people knew that I focused on saddles and that I would repair all the brands from around Europe, and a lot of them I did their warranty work, the work came flooding in. There was no way I could fail. The only problem I had was I only had so many hours in a day. And it was during this time that I really honed my skills as a saddle maker and a female rider, to where I was focusing on designing and making saddles specifically for women. At that time, and I think still today, there are very few saddles that are ergonomically correct for the female form. And I think as a female rider can really know what it feels like with the challenges and the biomechanics of connecting horse and female rider. You guys, you got it easy, you're just built to ride. So with that in my belt as well, the work was incredibly full on and very rewarding. And I managed to get a little bit of riding in along the way. So life was trucking along, and we had our farm, and we had all those material things that you're supposed to collect along the way. And then sadly, my husband was diagnosed with advanced pancreatic cancer. And in a very short 8 months period of time, he passed away. I had the business at home, I had the horses at home, the dogs, cats, everything was at home, and thankfully so, because he really wanted to stay at home and be nursed by me. So I juggled everything, and if it hadn't have been for the horses, the dogs, the cats, and my work, I don't think I would have come out of it as well as I did. So after he passed away, I knew that I'd be moving back to the UK, because the UK had always been home. So it was a little while before I finally put my life to bed in America. Thankfully, the business that I had built up, I passed on to my wonderful apprentice, Adrian, who's in Idaho. She's also taken one of my horses as well, and my furniture, and my cookery, culinary stuff, my trailer, my other trailer, and all my bits and bobs. So when I go and visit her and my horse, I go to bed in my bed with my blankets, with my furniture around me. It is the most surreal thing. And then I was like, okay, well, back to the UK, I'm just going to take it easy. I've had a lot to deal with in life, and I would like to be quite quiet for a little bit. I moved back 1st of June in 2017. I don't have a workshop, didn't really have a home, and wasn't really sure what life was going to give to me next. But I didn't really worry about that, because all I needed was calm in my life. It'd been a chaotic ride. And 5 weeks later, I don't know how it happened, but I ended up being in this barn in West Sussex, stood in front of this bench, and this guy called Tom walking through the door with this Louis Vuitton steamer trunk case, bonking it on the bench and saying, "My name's Tom, here's my Louis Vuitton case, can you fix it?" And I go, "Absolutely." This was my first day on the set of the repair shop. I think I was not really present. I was still dealing with quite a lot. And I remember poor Tom, during a break from filming, he said, "Oh gosh, I'm really nervous." And I went, "Yeah, so am I." And he said, "Well, it's all right, you do this all the time." I went, "First time." And I think he was like really nervous then. This is going to go terribly bad. But as it is, I have recently viewed that episode, and I look at it and I just like, I don't recognise that person, because what you see on the outside was what is not what was going on the inside. I was not in a good place. There was lots of things going on. But the one thing I had that has always been a constant in my life is the skills and working with leather. And this is where my passion with leather really comes to the forefront. Because of a platform that I've been given today, the general public come to me and they ask me questions, and I could spend all day replying to emails. I simply don't have the time. But it has really shown that there is a void in understanding. The public still see the value in leather. And now visually seeing, due to a television program, what leather can be used for, the longevity of it. If you look after it, it will go on for hundreds of years. And if it's no longer required, it is biodegradable. And it is sustainable if it's produced in the right way. These are all key words, in case you hadn't realised. And so, as somebody who has received so much from using this beautiful material and encompassed it in my passion of the horses, you bet I'm on the side of making sure the public understand the value of leather, that it is sustainable, that we can make sure it's produced in a responsible manner with all of the issues that we're dealing with today. So when Deborah got in touch with me and said, hello, I'm the CEO of Sustainable Leather Foundation, and I'd really like to chat to you. I go, sounds important. and so we had a chat, and I'm not the quickest person on the planet when it comes to technology, but she guided me through the dashboard, and I'm like, oh, even I understand this. This is so cool. And so we've developed this wonderful relationship, and I feel that I'm just on the edge of exploring many other avenues within the leather industry that have never been open to me before, and for that I'm truly grateful. I feel very honoured to be with people such as yourself, because you all come with so much knowledge and so much that I can learn from you. I'm like a sponge. I still want to learn, even though I've been in the industry for a very long time. And I think at this age, where most of my friends are retiring, and I'm going, no, I'm not even on the first run of the ladder yet. I've got a long way to go. That in itself just gives me so much energy to say, okay, well, what's the next challenge? What can I do now? Yes, it's time for me to give back, but I've also got a lot of knowledge that I need to make sure is out there. And how does that combine with knowledge that I haven't even absorbed yet? So I'm very engaged in anything to do with the leather industry, and I'm looking forward to speaking with all of you at some point. So going back to this photo, so if any of you are riders, you'll completely understand when you're riding a horse cross country, you're meeting fence after fence after fence, which is actually really challenging. It's physically challenging, and just when you think your lungs are about to burst, you come up to the most difficult fence, and this was the most difficult fence on the course of this day. This horse, Bob, he was quite young. It was his first time out over a course like this. The advantage that I had was I knew that this was the first time I'd ever been on a course at this big. He wasn't aware of this, so coming up to that fence, I remember that fence so vividly. It's as if it happened just yesterday. Coming up to it, you have to make sure you get your stride exactly right. You've got to get the amount of energy from the speed that you're going just right. If you're going too fast, you're likely to slam into the fence. If you're going too slow, you don't get the power to lift over a fence like that. Coming up to that fence, my lungs were really beginning to be tested. And he was a big, powerful horse, and I saw it and I thought, this is not going to end well. But I did hold on my big girl pants, and I get myself sat, and as he went to take off, I just felt this incredible energy and this incredible elation and we successfully made that fence. I didn't realise that there was a photographer down there taking that photo. We carried on, we finished the course, it was great, I was elated. It was one of the best experiences of my life, but that fence to me is very pertinent because I'm not the most confident person on the planet. And so when I feel that I'm a little bit shaky and that my confidence isn't great, and I think it would be so much easier just to walk away from that challenge and just not deal with it, I'll take a moment, I'll look at that photo and I'll go, I remember how scared I was going up to that fence, but somewhere in me, I do have courage. There's the proof. So whatever is given to me today, I do have the courage and I will carry on and I will do the very best that I can. And I hope within this family of the leather industry, I can be here to help, be a part of what you're already doing. So thank you very much.
Don't formally have questions with the memorial lecture, but if you are happy to answer.
No, I didn't know. If there were any questions.
Well, we have got a few minutes, I think, so if you wouldn't mind taking some questions, we perhaps have time for one or two, but just trying to.
I'm happy to, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a few minutes left, so if you. We don't have to speak about this. Yeah. So if anyone does have any questions for.
Yeah, I'm happy to
Suzie?
take questions. Oh, hello, Toby.
I'm a huge fan of the repair shop.
Uh-huh.
Is it always raining?
Well, one of the challenges that we all have to deal with working in a barn, and we do all the work in the barn, is the conditions. And it is in West Sussex, and it does rain, and it is damp, and it is drafty. And so your glues don't work in the winter, or they work too well in the summer. Your dyes don't go off, or you're frozen to the spot, and you've got to put a smile on your face. So the answer is no, but we do have a lot of challenges with the conditions that we have to work with. But I think the fact that we all step up to the plate again shows the camaraderie and the can-do attitude within the entire group. And if you're ever in a group of people that are so you know that you can complete any challenge that's put in front of you, and that helps in your own personal life as well. It just, it's very infectious that, yeah, we can. So I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah, so you appeared on day one, but did you apply for a job to get there, or did you?
No.
So that's always interesting how you actually came to be on TV.
Kicking and screaming. So my brother Steve,
Yes.
he is the clock man, and so Steve and I are incredibly close. When I was closing down my life in America, he was very concerned about me. There was a lot going on, and we would regularly Skype, more so than normal. And then one day he told me, oh, guess what? I'm going to be on this telly program. And every night he would check in with me and tell me what was happening. And after about the second week of him doing this, I'm like, oh, this sounds like fun. And I said, well, if they ever need anyone that doesn't know that, toss my hat in the ring. Well, he did. And I'm like, oh, I didn't mean it. I did not mean it at all. And I remember stood in my living room, everything was boxed up, and I was just looking at the remains of my life in America. It was a few days away from moving out completely, and the phone rings, and it's one of the production staff members going, hi, we'd like to have you on the show. And I said, no, thank you. That's very nice of you, but I'm moving back to the UK to have a rest. And they went, we know. We'd still like you to come on the programme. No, I haven't got a workshop, haven't I? Yeah, we know. They wouldn't take no, basically. I went, oh, right, get her off the phone. I've got things to do. So I said, yeah, I'll come and see you. So I arrived back, and very quickly the phone rings. I was with my brother. I didn't have a phone because one of the things for moving back with the UK was I no longer existed and I had no credit in this country. That was a smack in the face of somebody who still had a bank account in this country, and I couldn't get a cell phone, and I couldn't get a mortgage, and there were so many couldn'ts, and I'm like, I don't belong here. I'll go back to America. So I couldn't get a cell phone. And anyway, so Steve gives me his phone and have another talk. They said, well, maybe we could just do a screening interview. Okay, fine. And I thought, they're really not going to like what they say. They're going to see, clearly I just need to have a rest. But they said, no, we'd like to have you join the group. Driving down that day, I had a panic attack. And if anyone knows what a panic attack is, you know that it's not a lot of fun. And actually, I thought I was having a heart attack. Thankfully, it was only a panic attack. So I arrive on set, and I said, okay, well, where do I put my tools? Go over there and then stand behind the bench, and you'll have somebody come in. I went, oh no, I've never done this before. I'd like to stand and watch if I may. And they went, not how it works. You're up next. Hi, hello. Yeah, of course I can. Fake it till you make it. More than that. And somewhere in me was that, thankfully I've got my brother here. But I thought, well, maybe this isn't so bad after all. And let's face it, it's not live. And anyway, who's going to see this? It's on BBC Two. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. No one's going to see it, are they? So they thought, well, we'll only need you a little bit because there's not much leather in items from the past. Like Alabama, there we go. History has a lot of leather in it. And so from what they thought was going to be the occasional appearance, I became one of the main group on the programme. And I'm pleased to say that what we've been able to do has been so well received by the viewers, and it has opened up many discussions that are very healthy and much needed discussions. And along with those discussions is the importance of education and making sure that we pass on our skills and keep these skills and trades alive, even if they have to be adjusted a little bit for today's modern uses. One of the things I have realised is that there is so much attachment to nostalgia, and within an item tells somebody's life history, and everybody's important. And when you can find something that is a catalyst showing that every single person is important, it gets its own energy. Who would have known that that simple satchel that was given to somebody so that it gave them the confidence to go to school would mean that much to the history of that person's life? And also, it's something that we can all relate to. It doesn't matter where you've come from. It's important that we respect our heritage, the skills that we inherited from our parents, and use them in a way that helps to keep their memories alive. Because I think it's really important to honour those that gave you the opportunity to be the person that you've become today.
Thank you. That was very, very.
That was very long-winded, wasn't it? That was just a question. I know. That's what happens with me. You give me an inch, and I'm going to take the whole stage.
Just sort of was now with no.
And I'm so shy. I'm going to crawl back into my corner.
Like how long you actually get to do the repair, because obviously we don't have any time to go. When you're watching, somebody's there, they come back. But in real life, what sort of period of time was that? Depends on the repair, or
I've signed a dotted line. I can't tell you. You say how long, I'd say how short.
Oh, right.
Give you an idea.
Thank you very much then.
Yeah. No, it's the gift that keeps on giving as far as challenges. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be a part of.
Can I ask one
Yeah.
question? Given everything else that you have to do, is it almost taking over too much, the repair shop side? Do you still get enough time to concentrate on your passion in your workshop?
Yeah, I think everybody's been blindsided with popularity, and nobody takes any of it for granted. As we move forward, the people that we work with are very well aware of all of this, and they are the most amazing team of people I've ever worked in my life with, because they adapt things so that everybody is kept happy. And just that alone, to be part of a group where they are so aware of what's important to everybody's well-being, doesn't matter what the industry is so refreshing. And so life has a way of finding its path, and I'm able to take on other opportunities, other doors are opening, while staying with the regular day-to-day job, if you like. It's just my plans have been modified again, and being open to modification is key to finding where you need to be spending your time. Thankfully for me, I really enjoy work, inherited that from Dad, and actually it's not work, let's face it, if you're doing what you love, it's just what you do. And so that's a very long-winded answer, I'm very sorry. I'm very happy. Anybody else? You're all very lovely. I know. Yes.
I just a quick question for you. You mentioned the ergonomics of the saddle.
Yes.
And I appreciate that when ladies started riding, they were side saddle.
Absolutely.
And so forth. And the ergonomics of the saddle, you mentioned that you were developing more ergonomically designed saddles for ladies. I mean, and that saddles were best suited to men, which I found rather a strange statement, because you are essentially between the rock and a hard place.
I wondered where you were going with that. I've had some very interesting conversations with gentlemen when it comes to saddles.
You want to discuss this later?
I might find myself out of a job. Yes, so as with any equipment for a reason, the beauty of the horse is that they are so amenable to us and what we've asked of them through history. If we hadn't have harnessed the horse, where would we be today? We forget that we owe so much to the horse. It was our transportation, it was our means by ploughing the field so that we could create agriculture. And then later on in life, as the motor car came along, it became more of the recreational interest, if you like. So the horse was not designed to take us on their back. And yet we have figured out how to best suit the horse if we work with putting our weight in the area where he can take our weight. So once we sort of sorted out what the horse needs, men are designed to ride, women aren't. I mean, it's just a fact of biology. Women are designed for childbirth. Their pelvis region is completely different. They don't have the same muscles to engage in the same way of ease as man does. So I met a lot of women that had the same issues. They would constantly say to me, I can't do it because, and I understood why. I thought, well, how can I make a saddle that will eliminate these issues and make sure that the rider is comfortable enough to sit properly on the saddle and therefore eliminate the tension that she was transferring down to the horse. And it has been and continues to be the part of saddle making that I am still really, really excited about, because even though I've made progress. And that particular saddle on that photo was not the prettiest saddle on the planet, but my goodness, it worked really, really well. And in fact, I used to loan it out to people and had to go and collect it because they didn't want to give it up. It felt that good. It can be done. The key is making sure that the horse and the rider combination are comfortable, because again, they weren't put on the planet for us to sit on their back. So it is our responsibility to make sure that they are catered to first before ourselves. Sorry.
You had no need to apologise, but it has been a fascinating tour through your life and work, and it really has been the way that you've presented that, been exceptional for our conference. So thank you very much, and we would like to present you with a certificate of appreciation for the Worcester Home Memorial Lecture.
That is so lovely. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
It's a
And thank
proper
you very much.
certificate.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, remember, I was dyslexic. I didn't get many of these in my life. This is a big deal.
Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, all right,
Thank you very
thanks, guys.